At recess he wandered off by himself, trying hard to get back some of the strong, firm hopes of the morning. One more sharp trial was in store for him. Towards the close of the afternoon, Bob's fun took the form of paper balls, which at every turn of Mr. Burrow's back spun through the room in all directions. 2 or 3 of the smaller scholars joined him, and a regular fire of paper balls was kept up. The boys complained, and Mr. Burrows scolded. At last he spoke this short, prompt sentence: "The next boy I catch throwing paper or anything else in this room today I shall punish severely, and I shall expect any scholar who sees anything of this kind going on to inform me." Not 5 minutes after that Mr. Burrows bent over his desk in search of something within, when whisk went the largest paper ball that had been thrown that day, and landed on the teacher's forehead. Some of the scholars laughed, some looked grave and startled, for Mr. Burrows was a man who always meant what he said. "Does anyone know who threw that ball?" he asked, closing his desk and speaking in a calm, steady tone. No reply. Silence for a minute. Then, "Ellis Holbrook, do you know who threw that paper ball?" "Yes, sir." "Very well, I'm waiting to be told." "Tip Lewis threw it, sir." This was a little too much for Tip. The first time in his life he had ever been in school all day without throwing one, to be so accused. He sprang up in his seat with fire in his eyes. "I didn't," he almost screamed. "He knows I didn't. It is a mean, wicked lie." "Sit down," said Mr. Burrows. "Ellis, did you see him throw it?" "Yes, sir, I did." Mr. Burrows turned to Tip. "Edward, come here." Tip was still standing. "Say you won't," whispered Bob. "Say you won't stir a step for the old fellow. If he goes to make you, we'll see who will beat." But the command was repeated, and Tip went forward, fixing his steady eyes on Mr. Burrows as he spoke. "Mr. Burrows, as sure as I live, I did not throw that paper ball." And yet, poor Tip, he knew he would not be believed. He knew his word couldn't be trusted. He knew he had often stood there and as boldly declared what was not true, and what had been proved in a few minutes to be false. No, nobody believed Tip. He had earned, among other things in the school, the name of hardly ever speaking the truth, and now he must suffer for it. So he stood still and received the swift, hard blows of the ruler on his hands, stood without a tear or a promise. Mr. Burrows had not a doubt of his guilt, for hadn't Ellis Holbrook, whose word was law in the school, said he saw the mischief done? And didn't Tip always deny all knowledge of such matters until made to own them? Still, this time the boy resolutely refused to confess that he had thrown a bit of paper that day, and went back to his seat with smarting hands and the stern words of the teacher ringing in his ears. What a heavy, bitter heart the poor boy carried out from the schoolroom that afternoon. He felt as though he almost hated every student there, quite hated Ellis Holbrook. Mr. Burrows, catching a glimpse of his face, said to one of the other teachers, "That boy grows sullen, with all the rest. His good nature was the only thing which he had about him, and he is losing that." Tip heard him and felt that it was true. He had been punished many a time before, and taken it with the most provoking good humor. But today it was different. Today, for the first time in his life, he had received a punishment which he did not deserve, this day of all others in which he had tried with all his heart to do right. "Why didn't you hold on, you simpleton?" Bob asked. "Never saw you get up so much pluck in my life. What made you back out and be whipped like a baby? Why didn't you own that you threw that plaguey paper ball, and not sit there like a coward and see me take your whipping?" "I own it? That's a good one. 'Pon honor, Tip, didn't you throw that ball? I thought you did. I was aiming one at Ellis Holbrook's head just then, and I didn't see what was going on behind me. Didn't you throw it, honor bright?" "No, I didn't, and I'll throw you if you say so again." And Tip turned suddenly in the opposite direction. but Satan still walked with him. "It's no use," said this evil spirit, speaking out boldly. "It's no use. Don't you see it isn't? You might as well give it up first as last. The boys and the teacher and everyone think you're nothing in the world but a wicked young scamp, and you never can be anything else. You've been humbugging yourself these 4 weeks, making believe you had a great friend to help you. Why hasn't he helped you today? You've tried your best all day long, and he knows you have, yet you never have had such a hard day in your life. If he cares anything at all about you, why didn't he help you today? You asked him to." Tip sat down on a log by the side of the road and gave himself up for a little to Satan's guidance, and the wicked voice went on. "Now, you see, you've been cheated. You've tried hard for a whole month to be somebody, and no one thinks any more of you than they did before, and never will. Your mother scolds just as much, and your home looks just as dismal, and Kitty is just as hateful, and the respectable boys in the village have nothing to do with you. You might just as well lounge around and have a good time. Nobody expects you to be good or will let you when you want to be." Softly there came another voice knocking at Tip's heart. At first he would not notice it, but it would be heard. "What of all that?" it said. "Suppose nobody cares for you or helps you here. Jesus died, you know, and he is your friend. You know that is not a humbug. You know he has heard you when you knelt down and prayed, and he has helped you. Then there's heaven, where all the beauty is, and he has promised to take you, yes, you, there by and by. Oh, you must not complain because people won't believe that such a bad boy as you have been has grown good so soon. Christ knows all about it, so it's all right. Just keep on trying, and one of these days folks will see that you mean it. They will. God has promised. He has given you a lamp to light you. Why have you not looked at it all this day?" "Oh," said Tip, I can't be a Christian. I've not done right nor felt right today. I almost hate the boys, and Mr. Burrows too. I don't know what to do." "Go on home," said Satan. "Let the lamp and these new notions and all go. Christ don't care anything about you, such a miserable, wicked, story-telling boy as you have been. Do you expect him to notice you?" But Tip's hand was in his pocket, resting on his lamp, as he had learned to call it, and the low, sweet voice in his heart was urging him to let its light shine. He drew it out and turned the leaves, and the same dear helper stopped his eyes at the words, "Fear not, for I have redeemed thee. I have called thee by thy name. Thou art mine." And then came hot, thankful tears. Oh, precious words sinking right into the torn, troubled heart. Christ the Redeemer had called him by his name. He was, yes, he would be his. He glanced around. Nobody was to be seen. He was sitting in the hollow at the foot of the hill, and under the shade of a low branching tree, and there he knelt down to pray, and Satan drew himself away, for the spot around that kneeling boy was holy ground, and Tip's soul gained the victory.